So first I would like to thank you, Elena, for inviting me to present my work. I'm not an historian, I'm a sociologist, so I would like to propose a step aside with my presentation. I think questioning photography needs an interdisciplinary approach. It allows us to break the traditional division of visual studies between work on image and work with image. So my thinking is based on the idea that the capturing of African social worlds in image is the result of different fields of the photographable. So I borrowed the concept from Pierre Bourdieu, which is a French sociologist. So the field of the photographer, we can say that's what is considered worthy of being photographed and then shown, but also stored, communicated, admired, and so on. I consider the field of the photographable a little bit in a different way than Bourdieu. I consider it linked to the plurality of individual influences that contribute to its construction and its evolution, and the circulation of the individuals, but also the circulation of the norms, the image, which can contribute to the plasticity of this field of the photographable. So my research practice deals with analyzing the shooting process, how it allows us to understand the field of the photographable of people involved in this process. That means 3 points. First, that means to articulate the photographic reference, the photographic act itself, and the interaction that underlies it. So who photographs, what and how. Second point, that means consider photography as a co-construction between the photographer and its subject and within a specific context. And finally, that means to analyze photographic practice through absence, through what which is not represented or has not been recorded by the camera. So this absence gives us the more information about the relationship between photographer and subject and about the social dynamics, particularly the power relations that cut across this relationship. So maybe this idea of photographic interaction is not so easy for historians, because I think sometimes you have the picture but you don't have all the information around the picture, all the information about the context of the picture, of the interaction at the source of the picture. But I think we can consider the multiplicity of the context and the multiplicity of the interactions. In fact, photographs become independent of their authors, of the author's intentions, and may be diverted from their initial use or over time change in purpose. So we must incorporate the entire process of producing photographs, from their conceptions to their disappearance, their reception, their conservation, selection, the organization of the archives. So all this information of this interaction along the process, along the life of the photograph. So my interest here lies in work. I'm a sociologist of work, so mostly in Ethiopia. Initially, I would like to speak about my project in Burkina Faso, but it's still in progress. And I focus on company, foreign investment, and so on. So the use of photography for me is a way of shedding light on the relationship to work, and a way of paying attention of what is making visible by the workers, what is chosen to be presented in front of the lens or displayed for a large audience in the case of exhibition. So I will propose in this presentation a first very quick time for presenting my methodology and the context of my research. And after, secondly, I will focus on 4 cases, maybe 4 group of 4 pictures or 4 group of pictures, illustrating what the photographic interaction can tell us about social relations, work and work organizations. So let's go for the first point, which is about my approach, my methodology. So I just check. I don't remember exactly the slide I have chosen. Okay, just to check what is okay. So my presentation is mainly based on one type of interaction. So I won't speak about another type of interaction, which is very important also in my research, is the interaction around the exhibition. So I just show different exhibition I was part of or I have directed, and in which I try to make this work of analyzing the reaction of audience in front of picture of work or picture of work or picture of workers. But for this presentation, I will focus on the interaction between the photographer and the models during the shooting. The first, photography was used for me in my research as a documentary archive, or what we call currently.
I'm just moving this because it is covering the.
Sorry.
Questo? Yeah, it was covering the slide.
Okay. I was using photography as a visual field diary. And first it was my first use of photography, and time to time I use it to show a country in mutation. I use it to grasp Ethiopia's process of industrialization. I think it doesn't move.
Yeah, it's Zoom. Okay. This.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I want to show, because this is what this sort of activities I was inquired. So this sort of picture I made, but also I make a lot of picture of urban activities and so on. But just to give an idea. And this picture contrasts with the usual representation of Ethiopia in the academic or academic world, specialists of work or labor, or in the main audience in Western country. Very often they have more. Sorry. This representation of Ethiopia, of a starving country, something very miserabilistic, or this representation, which is very used by a tourist agency or companies, something very exotic, and a historical vision of Africa. So at the beginning, my idea was to contrast my subject of work and the representation, the image the people have in mind when it comes to Ethiopia. And after, my approach has changed along the research project from these illustrative photographs to the discovery of the heuristic potential of the photographic interaction.
Could you switch off your mics, please?
So the photographs mentioned in this presentation were taken mainly in foreign and Ethiopian companies, sometimes also in the streets. So it is more than 1,300 photographs taken between 2011 and 2021. They complement an ethnographic research on the moral commitment of entrepreneurs in Ethiopia. But the photograph, so this research includes observation, interviews with employees, mainly in 5. I make monographic research in 5 companies in Ethiopia, but the photograph cover a larger sample than the only 5 companies monographed. They were taken sometimes in companies in which I conduct just one interview, for example, with the director. And I extended also this work in a qualitative survey in Burkina Faso. I think it can give you a brief overview of the picture I will comment. So this brings me to the various cases of interaction I propose to develop here. I will examine how photographic interactions between the people in front of and behind the camera are crossed by effect of race. That means what it means here for Ethiopian respondents to be photographed, or Ethiopian model to be photographed by a white woman, as well as class and gender. I will also show that the analysis of these variables, gender, race, social class, must be modulated in the light of the biographical experience of the model. At the photographic interaction reenacts previous situation of domination experienced differently by each respondent or each model. Then I will underline the importance of the organizational context to understand also the interactions. So for the first case, I want to introduce this photograph by noticing that taking photos of Ethiopian men has generally meant making visible their staging of themselves to me, rather than making visible their work. And this photograph is a good illustration. So this photograph is a photograph of a garbage collector. It was taken on the street near my home in the Kebena district, so in Addis Ababa. When I asked this garbage collector to take the picture of him at work, he immediately adopts this pose, proudly camped in front of his dumpster, fist on hips, being photographed in the street by a white woman who can be associated by either European tourist or an expatriate, no doubt contributes to his pride in having attract attention in this way. While his dumpster and uniform are an unmistakable sign of his activity, this garbage collector deliberately chooses to pose and show off at work, but not, for example, in the middle of his activity. This may be as much a question of asserting attributes associated with virility, for example, as a certain pride linked to the exercise of a professional activity that has recently been revalorized as it participates to the beautification of Addis Ababa. So there is different interpretation we can have of this specific staging. Photographic interaction take another turn when gender relations are reversed. So when a white man photograph take an Ethiopian woman worker in picture. So that's my second case. I observed this type of interaction during a brief experience of collaboration with a photographer, a white Frenchman in his 50s, who had come to Ethiopia for 2 weeks on a photo assignment. So the scene take place in a small textile company in the Awassa Industrial Park on the south of the country. I'm visiting for the second time this company, and I'm conducting biographical interviews with employees on the same day. The interviews were conducted in Amharic, and I am accompanied by a translator, 30 years old, some more or less Ethiopian from Addis Ababa, with whom I began a collaboration. So while I'm talking to the employees, the photographer offers to photograph some of them at work. Abeba, so it's not her real name, but it's a pseudonym, so Abeba, is a young operator. She agrees to talk to me in an interview, but refuses to be photographed unless I am the one behind the camera. So Abeba could, for me, represent an archetypal young woman who has come to Hawassa in search of work and freedom from family control. She comes from a family of 9 children. Her parents are grain merchants and own a farm, situation that enables them to support her departure to join her brother 200 kilometers north of the family land. There, after finishing the secondary school, so the grade 10, she trained for 6 months in one hotel, but soon left this poorly paid sector for a job as an operator in this textile company. Abeba's choice to allow me to take her photo can be explained by a combination of factors contributing to a fragile and fleeting form of trust. The trust was creating first during the interview. The shooting was just after the interview, which led Abeba to talk about her life and thus generated a certain intimacy with the interviewer, so I. The closeness was reinforced by our shared feminine condition, which reduced my strangeness, and therefore the distance between us reduced a little bit, as did my use, however limited, but of Amharic, which is the language used, the working language used in this company. And maybe a third point, this gendered community also erased the possible sexual connotation of photography, which could be implicit in the photographic interaction between men and women. I have noticed it. This is all the more important given that women in Africa and elsewhere are often being object of the male gaze, producing photos intended for a male audience, reducing the woman's body to object of their desire. So, like most of the Ethiopian women, I photograph, Abeba complies with the exercise, but adopts a very restrained posture when shooting. She doesn't show herself. One could say she submits to the exercise at the same way she accepts the constraints of wage labor or the demands of domestic work. So Abeba, she's reenacting the submission of Ethiopian female employees to the norm of industrial labor, which explains the valorization of female labor expressed by a lot of entrepreneurs I have met. And for the photographer, showing women's work is sometimes difficult, as women themselves do not wish to show themselves at work. That's why I have chosen this picture, because as you can see, Abeba is like in the dark because of the light of the machine, and I think it illustrates this difficulty to make the invisible woman work visible. So. However, I want to underline the race, gender, and social relations in the photographic interaction must be understood in their processual dimension, as they take different forms through experiences over the course of the life cycle of the models. While Ethiopian women are generally less demonstrating in front of the lens, they have a whole range of reaction to offer, from categorical refusal to specific form of staging, which they can also combine with a series of photographic interaction. So there is a lot of possibilities. And my last example will illustrate this importance of the process and the experience, the difference between the experience of the different models. So on a Saturday morning, I went to this social enterprise to take photos of deaf and mute workers after meeting its manager, a young white European man. He had assured me of the enthusiasm of the employees, mostly women, for photography. However, I'm greeted in the main room of this small company by some 15 women seated in their workstation. So you have an overview of the organization of work on the picture. So these women seem, if not hostile, at least uncooperative. I present my project in English, and my words are translated into sign language by an interpreter. One of the employees, so I gave her the name of Miesh. Miesh speaks in sign language and expresses great mistrust. Basically, she said, what are these photos for? Very quickly, the manager takes me outside to talk more comfortably with the worker. So standing in the front of the workroom door, I heard the manager say, "Is it because she's white?" And this is the only things I was able to listen during this event. After about 10 minutes, the manager lets me in again, assuring me that the employees have agreed to the shoot. He later explained that Miesh, like many of the employees, so after I have the opportunity to make an interview with Miesh, so like many of the employees, has been placed in an orphanage where white people, I don't know if there were donors or maybe adoption candidates, I don't know, regularly took photos of children, photos which the children never saw and of which they had no idea the final use. So the brutality of Miesh's refusal mirrors that of the relations of domination that runs through their experience of photography. While this relation of domination are classically determined by the variables of race and class and social class, they are unbuoyed in the diversity of relation of subordination that Miesh experienced and will live at this time. So the relationship of children to adults, the relationship of deviants, I mean orphans, disabled people, to the institution. So it's quite interesting to replace the different experience of photography people have in their biography to understand how they react, how they behave in front of the lens. And as you can see, after the situation become better, and we take a lot of picture and.
You have the caption before, after.
Yeah, right. First, I thought maybe I can show no photo to say, yeah, it was the illustration of the absence. It was not possible to take a picture at this time. So the social relations at play in photographic interaction need to be analyzed in terms of variables of race, class, gender, but also cross with the personal or historical or organizational backgrounds of individuals and their experience of photography. So my last example, my last case, is to focus on this question of organizational background. So I think it's quite interesting to think about where the pictures are taken, and picture taken in a company can enable me or the photographer to capture in a snapshot different sort of articulation, and in my case, articulation between the local and the global. So we introduce the case of Ikar. Ikar is a Turkish textile company based in the outskirts of Addis Ababa. It is considered as a pioneering foreign investment in the sector. The factory has already received regular visits from investor delegations. At the time of my visit in 2015, it started out as the modern workplace and a symbol of textile development in Ethiopia. So this is an overview of this factory. So when I arrived, one photograph caught my eye as soon as I entered in the large hall. It was the picture of the inauguration of Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. It shows Zenawi, the first promoter of developmental state in Ethiopia, cutting a cake in the presence of two dignitaries, I presume the company director and perhaps a Turkish diplomat. The inauguration of the factory in 2010 coincides with the launch of the Growth and Transformation Plan, which planned the industrialization of the country. So this picture is close to the elevator. It's a small photograph. So the question is not, in fact, its side or its place, but the question is that it's the only photograph in the very big and empty lobby with white walls. So you see only this picture. And this is the first things the visitor can see, because everybody has to take the elevator, so you can't miss it. So the choice of displaying this single image in a very huge white hall is not neutral, however. It gives an indication of what constitutes what we can call the area of the showweber in this company, where visuals are striking by their absence. So during my visit, my guide, which is an Ethiopian computer scientist, was more or less a friend of mine. That's why he make the visit with me. He urged me to take very specific photograph. This one, first of all, the photograph of the machines, which he described as a model of performance. He proudly insists they are German, at the guarantee of their quality. It's this sort of sentence you can also hear it in France. We consider that German is a sign of quality very often. So the second object of his interest is the product. So he asked me to take picture of this cheap pink leggings for the German and Turkish market. Sorry. So I wasn't able to have any contact with the seamstresses. I took photographs of them in general shots, as you can see, very quickly, as I couldn't decide on the pace of my visit. They themselves attach little importance of my presence, never looking at the camera or only glancing at it briefly. They are constrained by a terrorist way of organizing their work, which involved a great deal of control over their actions. So I was there to take portraits and pictures of workers, and I take picture of machine and product. So I propose here a way of interpreting the feel of the showable in this company. First, the companies. I just check here. This is my last slide. So the company's claims modernity is consistent with Ethiopia's developmental state project. With the project of industrialization, the aim is to discipline workers to conform to the expectation of private enterprise, an objective shared by foreign investor and by the state. For my entrepreneurial interlocutors, it is not so much a question of showing off the worker and their work, but it is more insisting of the modernity of which the company is the guarantor. This invisibilization of labor was confirmed in an interview with the plant manager on the same day. So this interview also show how the economic project is accompanied by an assumed vision of the hierarchy of civilization. I mean, in the mind of my interviewee, and takes on board a number of colonial stereotypes of African labor. So the director is a Turkish man, lives part-time in the country, speaks a few words of Amharic and a little English. So I don't go deep in the explanation, but you can imagine there is a three translation. So he speaks in Turkish, there is a translator translating in Amharic, and my guide, which is not a professional translator, is translating from Amharic to English, and me, in my brain, I am translating from English to French. So it's not a perfect interaction, but it's quite interesting. So how the translation is going. So the interview reveals the director's vision of his civilizing mission. He repeatedly complains about the laziness of Ethiopian workers. He compares the activity of workers according to their nationality, miming with his hand various imaginary characters on the move. For example, he do like this. So Japanese and European worker run like this, and then after he explained me African worker like this. So work nonchalantly. He concludes our conversation by pointing out, according to my translator, by pointing out that Ethiopians have to adapt. What means for him, because there is like a quiproquo at this time and the different discussion about the translation, but he precise after what does it mean. Ethiopian must conform to Turkish rules and ways of working. So this violent expression of racial and social domination is the corollary of the invisibilization of seamstresses within the organization. The company's management believe in its role of moralizing labor in Africa, seen as an homogeneous territory. In this context, the Ethiopian worker is not an individual with specific skills or a member of a larger community with a singular identity, but a constraint to be minimized, and therefore not a point of interest or not something to show to the European visitor. So to conclude my presentation, I just want to add some precision. So first, this last case, this is not the this is not the only vision, of course, of Ethiopian worker in my inquiry. I can say is really a minority of director, of executive having this sort of vision. Mostly because my survey focuses on social enterprises and moral commitment of entrepreneurs. So I don't survey all the companies, but I make a sample of companies with a moral or social commitment. But that last case gives me the opportunity to clearly underline the interest of analyzing, of course, the racial, gender, and social relation at work, but also in the organizational context. And I think we have to keep in mind that photography open up the space for a game, even in a standardized organizational context like this one, in which some of the workers can take control and overturn both racial and hierarchical domination. So there is a game. It's not something like very in just one way. There is a move. There is a space for people to behave, and this is in this game. If we focus on this game, we can analyze the different way. The different variable uses in the interaction, and we can precise this variable according to the experience of the different individuals. Thank you for your attention.
And
Sorry.